Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Loan Officer Marketing Podcast. We are blessed today to have Andrew Cebulskie on the show. Andrew, great to have you here.
Hey, good afternoon to you. Appreciate the time, and it's an honor to be on your show.
Right on. Well, yeah, I'm honored to have you, and I think this is going to be a very valuable episode for some people. Before we get into how you added 8 loans into the pipeline in pretty short order, can you tell us about yourself a little bit? How long you've been in the business, where you're located, that sort of thing?
Yeah, so been in the business, coming up on, I think, wrapping up the 27th or 28th year. It's hard to believe, time flies.
Congratulations.
First got in the business in late 97, didn't know what I was doing, but kind of figured I had some kind of affinity towards numbers, math. But took a leap of faith and left the postal service and joined a mortgage company. Didn't know what I was doing, and 4 years later, helped start our company in 2001. So,
Nice.
so yeah, that's a little bit
Fact.
of background on us.
Yeah.
So, yeah, as far as like the daily success plan goes, I jokingly said on the Breakfast Club a couple weeks ago that it just kind of happens haphazardly, right? No, it doesn't.
No, no, no. It's a plan. It's a plan.
You might be
So
able to get by a couple days or a couple weeks just off the cuff, but yeah, it's definitely it's a concerted effort. You have to be intentional about it, and what you guys in the Breakfast Club and the different plans that you have in place definitely help us on the broker side put things in
so
place, put plans in place, and being intentional about it.
there's going to be some people that are listening to this episode that don't know what the daily success plan is. So can you explain how you see the daily success plan?
Yeah, sure. In fact, it was a friend in the business. I don't work with him. He works at a different mortgage company, but it was probably about this time 2 years ago, third, fourth quarter of 2022, where he said, "Hey, you ever come across these folks called the mortgage marketing animals?" I'm like, "Yeah, probably. I don't know. It's just probably some kind of shtick, some scam." But then I started dialing in, and that's when I first discovered the daily success plan. And it's a 4 days a week, intentional, mapped out, put it on your calendar plan of making daily phone calls, not all day, maybe an hour or two a day,
Yep.
if your schedule allows it. And so, for example, Monday will be you're very intentional about reaching out to your referral partners. And if you don't have any, then you start establishing the relationships with realtors or financial planners or divorce attorneys or whoever is in your sphere of influence. And then Tuesdays is very intentional. If you've got a pipeline, hopefully in this market, most of us do. Tuesdays is you're reaching out to your current pipeline and giving them an update on where they stand. And if they're buying a house, you reach out to both agents and the title company and the insurance agent. And so that's Tuesday. Wednesday is your past database calls. And you're very intentional about reaching out to your past database, breaking up by the alphabet. And you spend a couple hours doing that. So maybe tomorrow or this week, your past database might be you're calling through the G's and the H's of your database. Great. You do that and you touch base. And Thursday is you're calling through all of your clients or prospects that are pre-approved and looking. And I could also add to that, maybe pre-approved and waiting for a rate to refinance.
Hmm.
That's Monday through Thursday. And at every phone call, you will be very intentional about asking for the business, which I
Yep.
think is what most people in sales fail to do.
Yep.
They assume that somebody's just going to send them the business.
Yep. Yeah. I did a good job. I deserve it. They'll
Yep.
remember, right?
And that's pretty much how I probably handled my career in the mortgage business for the most part. Hey, I did a good job. They won't forget about me. They're going to send me everybody they know from here until eternity.
Yep. So wait, I'm interested when you first started because everybody starts skeptical. Like, hey, I don't need a script, or, is this really going to work? I haven't called my past customer database in years. Why would I start calling them now? It's going to be weird. People are going to be freaked out. They're going to yell at me or whatever, like all this stuff that comes up in your head. So, what was your initial experience when you started following the DSP?
Well, my first initial reaction was, well, I don't need that. I'm the man, right? I've been in the business forever.
Which
But when
you
you
are.
but when you look at your own pipeline, you're like, well, maybe I'm not the man anymore. Um, maybe everybody I know has forgotten about the man. But no, that's just, setting all joking aside. That was my first reaction, that maybe I don't really need this. But then it quickly set in that, yeah, this is probably what's been percolating in my brain for like the last 6 months. Something's got to change. Something has shifted in the market. And so I've got to change my business practices. So I'd already started talking with people about saying, man, we got to get back to basics. We got to get back to our basics. What does that look like? We've been in the business so long, we don't even know what the basics are. Well, the basics are just being on the phone and
Yep.
asking for the business. And so after I got over the first shock, my first initial reaction, but I don't need this, it dawned on me that, oh yeah, actually I need exactly this
Hmm.
to reignite our business. And it took a while. And it for me, it took probably a good 6 months for it to really settle in. And then probably another 3 months after that for me to really guard my calendar and make sure
Oh,
that if Tuesday calls are from 9:30 to 11:30, I've got to make sure I try not to schedule any closings, don't schedule any dentist appointments, that kind of thing. Protect the calendar.
yeah, man, I'll take some phone calls over a dentist appointment any day. That's an appointment I'll skip.
Yeah.
That's um. So that amount of time on getting traction with the system is just the discipline, making the habits, protecting the calendar. When you got into the routine of the daily success plan, what started to happen? What type of results did you start to see? And where did the results come from? Where did you get the most results from?
I would say when it really settled in was probably mid-year of 2023. So May, June of 2023 is when, and I actually had a guy that worked for us. So what was helpful is I was coaching him through the process too, and which
Nice.
spurred me on to stick to the plan. And what we noticed is that when we would make our daily phone calls, even if it was only 5 to 10 phone calls a day, that you started to see results. And miraculously, the more times you ask for the business or ask for the referral, numbers start to go up. What I did notice with the gentleman that worked with us is that he would get on that roller coaster ride. He'd make some calls for a week or two, generate some business. He'd work on that business. He'd stop making his phone calls, and then a month later, he was without business.
Yep.
It wasn't the same for me, but what I found is that it took me a while to figure out still how to protect that calendar so that
Yep.
you maintain your calls week in, week out. I'm not 100% the best at it still. But even like let's say on a Tuesday, work through your pipeline, and then you definitely have to reach out to your current pipeline, touch base, call them, leave a voicemail, text them, email them, give them an update. And if they're buying a house, you definitely have to reach out to the buyer's agent, reach out to the seller's agent, and if possible, reach out to the title company to give them updates. And
Yeah.
then for every phone call, you ask for the business. So
That is absolutely fantastic. And so recently you were on Breakfast Club and you mentioned that you put 8 new deals in your pipeline following the daily success plan. Is that right?
that is correct, and that's probably my biggest week of production, and I don't even know how long. We're talking years, right?
But wait, sorry, 8 in a week, not a month.
A week, yeah. So and that's why I jokingly said it just kind of happened, right? It didn't. It didn't, because the weeks leading up to that week was, following up. Thursdays are your pre-approved and looking calls, and just making sure you follow up with them. And if they're kind of on the fence, you can talk to a prospective buyer and say, hey, remind them of why are they buying a house? What are they looking for? Kind of reigniting the passion, talking to the realtors who are also looking for those homes. And then also probably had a list of 8 or 10 people that have purchased homes in the last couple of years that were looking at refinancing. It's just some maintaining a constant open communication with them, and it all kind of converged, at least for those lists, into the same week as far as I think 5 of the refinances said, "Yep, let's do it." 3 more people going under contract in like a 3-day period. And then probably the 5 days after that, 1 or 2 more refinances decided to do it. And I think 2 more people went under contract. So it's been,
That is amazing.
yeah, it's just results of being intentional. Now,
Right.
what I will say is you get busy and sometimes your first instincts is, well, I'm so busy. I can put off my phone calls till tomorrow, till next week. And that's very, very hard to overcome.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely it is. That momentum is everything. And I think one of the objections that I hear all of the time, or we'll leave it as an objection. I was gonna call it an excuse, but it's not. But they say, well, why would I call my database? They've all got rates in the 2s and 3s.
Mm-hmm.
And then it would be weird for me to reach out. Just like you said at the beginning of it, they know who I am. They can send me a referral. So when you're making those calls to the database, are you getting more business because you're asking for the referrals?
Yes, and I'll be transparent with you. When the Wednesday database calls is my weakest point
No
because
way.
um, I think I can get by with sending a text or
Yeah.
shooting an email out, and we know that those stats aren't going to spell out the same way as having those conversations. And so this week is going to be, on a Wednesday of the week will be my past database calls, and I've got my list. And even if I only make 8 or 10 calls, it's better than making 0 calls. But yeah, I've definitely found that when you do talk to your past customers, even if they just purchased a house 6 months ago or if it was 5 years ago, I've yet to have somebody say, "I don't remember who you are. Stop calling me. How offensive that you called me."
Right. Yeah,
It
they're
may
happy to hear
happen.
from you.
Yeah, but it hasn't happened yet.
That's
So
And so are you finding that there's this like magic window of kind of like 3 weeks of you call your past customer database, you have a friendly conversation with them, you ask for the business, and they don't have anybody for you. It's just like, oh yeah, no problem. We'll keep you in mind. We're happy to send the referrals. And then at some point in the next 3 weeks, you hear from them or you hear from somebody they've referred to you.
yeah, I think that's true because all of a sudden you become top of mind or close to the
Yeah.
top of their mind, and so then it's kind of like the same way as if you just bought a red Honda. All of a sudden you start seeing a lot of red Hondas on the street. I think it's the same way with our past database calls. Is that hey, they just talked to so and so. That's right. He's the one that helped us buy our house, and so it's in top of mind for the next 3, 4, 5 weeks. And all of a sudden, even though they may have been hearing conversations of people buying homes or refinancing because they talked to me, then they're like, "Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, you could talk to my guy. To call him." And so that's what we find
Yeah, that's
happens.
amazing. And the other area where I think there's value that you mentioned, and all of this is valuable, but when you're calling out to your pre-qualified list and your pals, pre-approved and lookings, I have a lot of people that are hesitant to call that list because they're like, they're pre-approved, they're out there, they're looking, they don't need to hear from me. Are you getting referrals by calling your pre-approved and looking list?
I believe I am. I mean, I know that I am. It's it's probably not as many as I would like, but
Oh yeah,
because we
good.
could always use more. um, but even so, I'm thinking of one person that I pre-approved back in April of this year. They're in a state next to ours, and I follow up with them consistently through the summer, and I've definitely dropped off because she's dropped further on the list, and she wasn't the most receptive to talking about the mortgage process. I think she was endeared to her local bank.
Oh yeah.
And so I've definitely fallen into that call reluctance. I'm like, well, maybe I shouldn't call her because, crazy as it sounds, maybe she's already bought a house, or hopefully she's already bought a house, and I don't have to have that awkward conversation with her. Well, that's silly, right? And so this week she's on the list to call. And you know what? Worst case scenario, she did buy a house. or
Right.
the realtor that she was using convinced her to go with an online lender. Okay, that's the worst case. Or the best case scenario is no, she hasn't bought a house yet, or she stopped looking, and then she'll stay on the list that I can follow up with. Maybe not every week, but at least every other week or a couple, once a month. That way she doesn't forget about me. And quite frankly, I don't forget about her either. So,
Yeah, exactly. And there's referrals out there,
yep.
friends, family, coworkers that looking to buy, sell, or refinance. There's a ton of referrals that can come from those active lookers. And I think so. You're such a phenomenal example, Andrew, of just getting it done. I love the fact that imperfect action, you're doing it. You're
Yeah.
doing it and that's what it takes. Nobody comes out and is like, I nail my calls every week. I do every day. I follow the scripts. Like, I don't think there's anybody that actually like fully
Sure.
nails it. And yet the results come. It's that imperfect action of being like, hey, you know what? I might not make 2 hours of calls, but I'm going to get the first 10 out. I think that's such a beautiful message today. So thank you for that. So if you could go back in time,
Hmm.
all the way back in time to when you first got started with the business, and you could have a little 2-minute conversation with your previous self, what would be the advice that you would give yourself as you just started in the mortgage business?
I would say, hey, young Andrew, protect your calendar.
Oh.
I still have a paper
Mm.
calendar on my desk.
Mm-hmm.
I still use it. Obviously, use a phone calendar, Outlook, whatever calendar you use. You should protect it because I went for years and years and decades in this business of being controlled by the business rather than controlling the business. Meaning that if you have a solid pipeline going, you're always working conditions. Whether or not you have an assistant or not, or you have a process or not, you're still bogged down with conditions, and that takes precedence. At least in my world, those conditions would take precedence over marketing efforts, and so you could
Yep.
go literally for years and years in a row without doing the correct activities to generate new business, and so you
Yeah.
end up kind of flying by the seat of your pants. Yeah, can you make a good living doing what we do, flying by the seat of your pants? Yeah, not the last couple of years. No, you couldn't.
Yep.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
and so that's probably what I tell my young self is protect your calendar. That way you've got scheduled into your calendar the right activities to generate business.
Yeah. That is amazing. That is incredibly powerful. The only thing you can't make more of, and the only thing you can't buy is your time.
That's right.
So that's incredibly valuable. Um, Andrew, if there's anybody listening that would like to reach out, how do people get a hold of you?
Well, our company is called Lynx Financial. It's Lynx, lynxfinancial.com. They can certainly email me, or I'm happy to give them my cell phone number to call or text or whatever. I'm,
That's
I'm open for the conversations, because you know what? More conversations begets more activity, begets eventually more business. So
That's right. And we're all in this together.
that's
So
right.
awesome. Well, thank you for being so generous with your time. To all of our listeners, a phenomenal first step, if you're not already there, is to join us on the Loan Officer Breakfast Club. You'll get to hang out with Andrew and myself and Carl White and some other just incredible leaders in the mortgage industry, Steve Kyles, Frank Garay. We're always there, 8:30, Monday through Friday, Eastern Standard Time. It's worth it if you're in the Pacific time zone. At 5:30 in the morning, great way to start your day. So head on over to loanofficerbreakfastclub.com. And again, Andrew, thank you so much for being here.
You bet. Appreciate your time.
Awesome. All the best, everybody, and we'll see you on the next episode.